Ta Wu Park stared at the holographic summons floating above his kitchen table. The Galactic Judicial Authority seal pulsed with an ominous red glow, making the tension headache behind his eyes throb in sync. Mandatory court appearance. Proxima Station. Failure to appear will result in permanent license revocation and possible imprisonment. He ran his fingers through his disheveled hair and glanced at the clock. 3 days to get to a station 3 systems away, and his pilot's license had been suspended last month after he'd broken formation to assist a damaged ship. The official report called it reckless endangerment. Ta Wu called it not letting people die. Public transport to Proxima had been suspended due to the diplomatic crisis with the Viridian Confederacy. His options were dwindling by the second. His eyes drifted to the window where his old ship, the Dauntless, sat gathering dust in the hangar. Flying it would mean another violation, this one far more serious. But the alternative was losing his license forever. Well, he muttered, reaching for his flight jacket. Sometimes you have to break the rules to follow them. The morning sun cast long shadows as Ta Wu walked to his ship. The hangar was quiet. Most pilots were still sleeping. He looked around to make sure no one saw him, then pressed his thumb to the entry pad. The door hissed open. The inside of the Dauntless smelled like old coffee and metal. Ta Wu ran his hand along the wall as he walked to the cockpit. It had been his home for 10 years before the suspension. "Hello, old friend," he whispered as he sat in the pilot's seat. The leather was cracked but still comfortable. He powered up the systems one by one. Each light that came on made his heart beat faster. The main screen flickered to life, showing a list of system checks. Most were green, but 3 were flashing yellow. The fuel cells were low. The navigation system needed an update, and the communication array was damaged. "Good enough," Ta Wu said. He didn't have time to fix everything. He just needed to reach Proxima Station. He connected to the automated launch system and waited. A robotic voice filled the cockpit. "Ship identification, please." Ta Wu hesitated. If he used his real ID, the system would flag him immediately. His license was suspended. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a fake ID chip. Illegal, but necessary. "Just this once," he said as he plugged it in. Identification accepted. Pilot Du Yun Li cleared for departure. Ta Wu let out the breath he had been holding. The hangar doors opened slowly. Bright light flooded in. He gripped the controls tightly as the launch track engaged. The ship moved forward. The Dauntless shot out of the hangar and into the sky. Ta Wu felt the familiar push of acceleration. For a moment, all his worries faded. He was flying again. Then the alarm sounded. "Warning. Unauthorized departure detected. Return to launch bay immediately." "Sorry, can't do that," Ta Wu said. He pushed the ship faster, climbing toward the upper atmosphere. His communication panel lit up. Someone was calling him. He ignored it. Then a second call came through, and a third. The screen showed they were from Port Authority. Finally, he answered. "This is Du Yun Li," he said, using his fake name. "This is Port Authority Officer Jin. Your flight plan was not approved. Turn back now." "I have an emergency," Ta Wu lied. "Medical supplies needed on Proxima Station." There was a pause. "No medical shipments are scheduled. Identify yourself correctly or face immediate interception." Ta Wu saw 2 security vessels rising from the spaceport. They were fast and well-armed. He couldn't outrun them. But he knew something they didn't. There was a small gap in the planetary defense grid, a blind spot caused by an old satellite that interfered with sensors. He had discovered it years ago, but never needed to use it. Until now. He turned the ship sharply and dived toward the planet's north pole. The security vessels followed. His hands flew over the controls, plotting a course that would take him through the blind spot. "Final warning," came the voice of Officer Jin. "Return to port, or we will disable your engines." Ta Wu didn't answer. He was too busy counting down the seconds. 3, 2, 1. He hit the thrusters at full power and shot through the gap. For 5 seconds, he was invisible to their sensors. It was enough. When he emerged on the other side, he was already accelerating toward deep space. The security vessels slowed, then turned back. They couldn't follow him beyond planetary jurisdiction without special permission. By the time they got it, he would be too far away. Taewoo set course for Proxima Station and engaged the jump drive. Stars blurred around him as the ship leaped into faster-than-light travel. He had made it off-planet, but this was just the beginning of his problems. The Dauntless's engines coughed to life after months of disuse. Taewoo navigated through the planet's atmosphere using unauthorized channels, his heart pounding with each passing enforcement drone. He was halfway to the jump point when his sensors picked up a distress signal. A small transport vessel was being pursued by a Kaldorian patrol ship, its weapons hot. "Not my problem," Taewoo whispered, even as his hand moved toward the controls. The transport's captain, Jae-young Kim, was fiercely grateful when the Dauntless appeared alongside them, creating an electromagnetic field that scrambled the Kaldorian targeting systems. "We're witnesses," Jae-young explained once they were safely hidden in an asteroid belt. "For a major trial on Proxima Station. The Kaldorians don't want us to testify." Proxima Station. Taewoo laughed humorlessly. What a coincidence. When Jae-young offered payment, Taewoo waved it away. "I'm already breaking about 12 laws. What's one more?" Taewoo looked at the small transport ship next to his. It was damaged. Laser burns marked its hull. The ship was built for cargo, not speed. It would never outrun the Kaldorians for long. "Your ship can't make the jump to Proxima in this state," he said over the comm. Jae-young's face on the screen looked tired. "We know, but we have to try." Taewoo sighed. He was already in trouble. Helping these people would only make things worse, but he couldn't leave them. "Dock with my ship," he said. "You can ride with me." The docking procedure took 20 minutes. The asteroid belt hid them from Kaldorian scanners, but it wouldn't last. They had to hurry. 5 people transferred from the transport to the Dauntless. Jae-young was the last one. She was tall with short black hair and eyes that looked like they had seen too much. "Thank you," she said as she stepped into his ship. "The Kaldorians would have killed us." Taewoo nodded. "Get comfortable. We need to move fast." He returned to the cockpit and checked the sensors. 3 Kaldorian ships were searching the asteroid belt now. They were getting closer. "Everyone strap in," he called back to his new passengers. "This might get rough." He powered up the engines and waited for the right moment. When the largest asteroid in the belt passed between them and the Kaldorian ships, he punched the thrusters. The Dauntless shot out from hiding, riding in the shadow of the massive rock. The Kaldorians didn't see them at first. By the time alarms sounded on their ships, Taewoo was already plotting a course through the densest part of the belt. "Are you crazy?" Jae-young asked, watching from behind his seat. "No one flies through there." "Exactly," Taewoo said with a small smile. The Dauntless weaved between rocks the size of buildings. Taewoo's hands moved quickly over the controls, making small adjustments. One wrong move meant death. The Kaldorian ships tried to follow but couldn't match his skill. 2 turned back. The 3rd kept coming. "They really want you dead," Taewoo said. Jae-young gripped the back of his seat. "We have evidence that will put their high commander in prison. Of course they want us dead." They cleared the asteroid belt, but the Kaldorian ship was still behind them. "Its weapons charge." "Hold on," Taewoo said. He cut the main engines and flipped the ship. Now flying backward, he faced their pursuer. He fired the emergency thrusters in short bursts, making the Dauntless dance in space. The Kaldorian ship fired. Beams of energy passed on both sides of the Dauntless, but missed. "What are you doing?" Jae-young asked. "Making them mad," Taewoo answered. He activated the ship's electromagnetic pulse. It wasn't designed as a weapon, but at close range, it could disrupt systems. The Kaldorian ship's lights flickered. Towu used that moment to spin the Dauntless around and push the engines to full power. They shot away from their pursuer. "We need to hide somewhere until the jump engines recharge," he said. "That pulse drained our power." Jai-Yum pointed to a moon on the navigation screen. "There, its magnetic field will hide us." Towu nodded and set course for the moon. They landed in a deep crater where their ship would be hard to spot. While they waited for the engines to recharge, Jai-Yum told him more about their mission. The Kaldorian High Commander had been selling weapons to pirates. Many innocent people had died. Jai-Yum and her team had proof. "That's why we have to get to Proxima Station," she said. "The Galactic Court needs our testimony." Towu checked the power levels. 2 more hours, and we can jump." Jai-Yum studied his face. "Why are you going to Proxima? You don't seem like the type to follow rules." Towu laughed. "I'm not, but I broke one rule to save lives, and now I have to face the consequences. If I don't show up in court, I lose my license forever." "So you're breaking the law to follow the law." "Something like that." The ship's sensors beeped. The Kaldorian ship was scanning the moon's surface. "They're persistent," Towu muttered. Jai-Yum looked worried. "We can't let them find us. Not when we're so close." Towu checked the power readings again. The jump engines were at 80%. Not ideal, but it might be enough. "We're not waiting," he decided. "Strap in. We're jumping now." Everyone hurried to their seats as Towu fired up the engines. The Dauntless shuddered as it lifted off from the moon's surface. The Kaldorian ship spotted them immediately and moved to intercept. "Come on, old girl," Towu whispered to his ship. "Just one more jump." The jump engines whined as they powered up. The Kaldorian ship fired, and a laser grazed their hull. Alarms blared. With a flash of light, the Dauntless disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the Kaldorian ship behind. "Human vessels are so primitive," the Kaldorian commander Hansu said with disdain as his flagship, the Eviscerator, tracked the Dauntless through the Cerulean Nebula. "Why does he keep changing direction? It's inefficient." His first officer, Mirai, studied the trajectory plot with growing concern. "Sir, I believe he's using the nebula's magnetic fields to boost his speed. It's unorthodox. It's suicide." Hansu snapped as he watched the small ship dance through radiation streams that would fry their own navigation systems. Meanwhile, aboard the Dauntless, Jai-Yum watched Towu pilot with a mixture of horror and admiration. "Why risk your life for us?" she asked. "Your species is known for self-preservation above all else." Towu didn't look up from the controls. "Whoever told you that never met many humans?" The Dauntless shuddered as a glancing shot from the Eviscerator struck their shield. "Besides," Towu added with a grim smile, "I was already going to court. Might as well make it worth my while." The Cerulean Nebula glowed around them like a sea of blue fire. Most pilots avoided this place. The radiation could damage ships. The magnetic storms could pull a vessel off course. But Towu flew straight into it. On the bridge of the Eviscerator, Commander Hansu pounded his fist on the arm of his chair. "He thinks we won't follow him into the nebula. He is wrong." Hansu turned to his crew. "Full speed ahead." Mirai stepped closer to him. "Sir, our shields will only last 30 minutes in there. We only need 10 minutes to catch them," Hansu said. The massive Kaldorian ship pushed into the nebula. Blue energy washed over its shields. Warning lights flashed on control panels. Aboard the Dauntless, one of Jai-Yum's crew members pointed at the scanner. "They're following us." Towu nodded. "I was counting on it." Ji-Yum looked at him with surprise. "You want them to follow. Their ship is bigger, it has stronger weapons, but it also has more to protect." Towu tapped a gauge on his control panel. "In this nebula, that's a problem." He turned the ship toward a bright cluster of stars at the heart of the nebula. The radiation readings jumped higher. "You can't go in there," Jai-Yum said, her voice tight with fear. "The radiation will kill us." "Not if we're quick," Tawu said. "And not if we use this." He pressed a button on the console. A small device unfolded from the hull of the ship. It was a magnetic shield, old technology, but effective. The Dauntless dove into the heart of the nebula. The magnetic shield redirected the worst of the radiation, but the ship still shook. Warning messages appeared on screens. "Shield strength at 60%, the computer announced. Behind them, the Eviscerator struggled. Its larger shields caught more radiation. Its systems began to fail. "Sir, we're losing navigation," Mayray reported. "We need to turn back." Hansu's face darkened with anger. "No, keep following them." "But sir, they have evidence that will destroy us all," Hansu shouted. "If they reach Proxima Station, everything we've built will be gone." Mayray looked at her commander with new understanding. She had thought they were chasing criminals. Now she realized they were hiding crimes. In the Dauntless, Tawu watched the Kaldorian ship growing larger on his screen. It was catching up. "They're gaining on us," Jia-Young said. "Good," Tawu replied. He reached for a switch that had a safety cover on it. He flipped the cover open. "What are you doing?" Jia-Young asked. "Something stupid." Tawu pressed the switch. The Dauntless suddenly released all of its waste material. Water, fuel byproducts, everything. In normal space, this would be harmless. But in the nebula, these materials interacted with the radiation. Behind them, the cloud of waste lit up like a small sun. The sensors on the Eviscerator were momentarily blinded. "Evasive action," Hansu shouted, but it was too late. The Kaldorian ship plowed into the cloud. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. The electrical systems shorted out. The ship began to drift. "All stop," Hansu ordered, his voice quiet with rage. "Begin repairs." Mayray looked at the small blip on their damaged scanner. That was the Dauntless. It was escaping. "They outsmarted us," she said softly. "No one outwits me," Hansu said. He turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to all Kaldorian ships in the sector. Find that vessel and destroy it." In the Dauntless, Tawu guided the ship out of the nebula. Their shields were down to 20%, but they had made it. "That was amazing," one of Jia-Young's crew said. Tawu shook his head. "That was lucky. And they'll be after us again soon." Ji-Young sat in the co-pilot's seat. "You could have escaped on your own. Your ship is faster without us. Why help us?" Tawu checked the navigation system. They were still 2 jumps away from Proxima Station. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. Jia-Young studied his face. "The Kaldorians say humans are unpredictable, dangerous. Now I see why. Is that good or bad?" Tawu asked with a small smile. Before Jia-Young could answer, an alarm sounded. 3 Kaldorian patrol ships appeared on the scanner. They were moving to surround the Dauntless. "Hansu called for backup," Tawu said. "He really wants you dead." Ji-Young looked worried. "What do we do now?" Tawu's hands moved across the controls. "Now we run, and hope our luck holds." The Dauntless turned and accelerated away from the patrol ships. But they were fresh, and the Dauntless was damaged. This time, running might not be enough. Proxima Station loomed before them, its spinning rings glittering against the void. So did the blockade of 5 Kaldorian warships. "We'll never make it through," Jia-Young whispered. Tawu studied the station's schematics. The maintenance tunnels on the underside. "They're just wide enough for the Dauntless if we retract the stabilizers. The heat from the station's exhaust ports would melt our shields. Not if we time it between discharge cycles." The maneuver nearly tore the ship apart. The Dauntless scraped through the maintenance tunnel with mere centimeters to spare, leaving a trail of sparks and hull plating behind. When they finally docked at an internal bay, station security was waiting. Captain Sung-Ho Lee took one look at Tawu's identification and shook his head. "Flying with a suspended license, And you have the audacity to show up for your court date. As they led him away in restraints, Jia called out, "He saved our lives. He's the reason we can testify." Taewoo just smiled tiredly. "See you in court." The Dauntless limped toward Proxima Station. Smoke leaked from damaged panels. Warning lights flashed on almost every system. Taewoo wiped sweat from his forehead as he fought to keep the ship on course. "There it is," Jia said, pointing to the large space station ahead. Proxima Station was built like a wheel with many spokes. It spun slowly, creating gravity for the people inside. But between them and the station floated 5 Kaldorian warships. Their weapons were ready. They'd waited like hungry animals. "They knew we were coming," one of Jia crew said. Taewoo nodded. Hansu must have called ahead. The radio crackled. "Attention, unidentified vessel. This is Kaldorian Defense Force. Stop your approach to Proxima Station, or we will open fire." Taewoo didn't answer. He turned to Ji-young. "Get everyone to the escape pods, just in case." Ji-young didn't move. "No, we stay together." Taewoo called up a detailed map of Proxima Station on his screen. He zoomed in on the bottom section, where large tunnels opened into space. "What are those?" Ji-young asked. "Maintenance tunnels. The station's engines and cooling systems are down there." Taewoo measured the tunnel opening with his fingers, then checked the size of his ship. "It's going to be tight. You want to fly through there. Those tunnels aren't for ships." "Exactly. The Kaldorians won't expect it." Taewoo turned to face her. "But it's dangerous. Very dangerous." Ji-young looked at the blockade ahead, then back at Taewoo. "Do it." Taewoo changed course. Instead of heading straight for the station, he dove below it. The Kaldorian ships didn't follow immediately. They seemed confused by this move. "They're trying to figure out what we're doing," Taewoo said. "That gives us time." He reached for a control panel and pressed several buttons. Parts of the ship's outer hull began to fold inward. "Retracting stabilizers," he explained. "We need to be as small as possible." The ship shuddered as its outer parts moved. A loud scraping sound came from somewhere behind them. "What was that?" Ji-young asked. "Nothing good," Taewoo said. "But we don't have time to fix it." On his screen, a timer appeared. It showed the station's exhaust cycle. Every 10 minutes, the station released hot gas and energy from its engines. The tunnels would be filled with heat that could melt their ship. "We have 2 minutes to get in position," Taewoo said. The Kaldorian ships had figured out their plan. They were now in pursuit, firing morning shots that flashed past the Dauntless. Taewoo flew the ship in a wild pattern, making it hard to hit. They were getting closer to the maintenance tunnels. 1 minute, he said. Ji-young gripped her seat tightly. "If we time this wrong." "We won't," Taewoo said, but sweat dripped down his neck. The entrance to the tunnel was now visible, a dark opening in the station's metal skin. Heat waves distorted the view around it. 30 seconds, Taewoo said. A Kaldorian ship appeared directly in their path. It fired, and the shot hit the Dauntless's left side. The ship spun wildly. Taewoo fought with the controls. "Hold on." He managed to straighten the ship just as they reached the tunnel entrance. Behind them, the Kaldorian ships pulled away. They knew what was coming. 10 seconds, Taewoo said. The Dauntless slipped into the dark tunnel. The walls were so close that they could hear the ship's hull scraping against metal. 5 seconds. 4, 3. Taewoo watched the timer. The tunnel ahead began to glow red. 2, 1. The station's exhaust cycle ended. The heat faded just as they flew through the most dangerous section. They had made it by 1 second. "That was too close," Ji-young whispered. The tunnel opened into a large internal bay. Taewoo guided the damaged ship to a landing pad and set it down. The engines gave one final cough and died. "We made it," he said. But their victory was short-lived. As they stepped out of the ship, Station security officers surrounded them. They wore blue uniforms and carried stun weapons. Their leader, Captain Sung-Ho Lee, looked at Ta-Wu with hard eyes. "Identification," he demanded. Ta-Wu handed over his ID card. Captain Lee scanned it and frowned. "Ta-Wu Park, your pilot's license was suspended last month." He looked up from the scanner. "You're in serious trouble." "I know," Ta-Wu said, "but I had a court date to keep, and you chose to break the law to attend your hearing for breaking the law." Captain Lee shook his head in disbelief. Security officers placed restraints on Ta-Wu's wrists. Jia Young stepped forward. "Wait, this man saved us. The Kaldorians were trying to kill us to prevent our testimony." Captain Lee looked at her group. "You're the witnesses for the corruption case." Jia Young nodded. "If not for Ta-Wu, we would be dead. He risked everything to get us here safely." "That's very noble," Captain Lee said, "but it doesn't change the fact that he broke the law." He nodded to his officers. "Take him to holding cell 3. His hearing is tomorrow morning." As they led Ta-Wu away, Jia Young called after him. "We'll tell them what you did, how you saved us." Ta-Wu looked back over his shoulder. Despite his exhaustion, he managed a small smile. "See you in court." The security officers marched him through the busy station. People turned to stare at the man in restraints. Ta-Wu held his head high. He had made it to his court date. Now he just had to face the consequences of getting there. The Galactic Judicial Authority courtroom was imposing, a vast chamber with judges from 12 species seated on elevated platforms. Judge Min-Ji Cho looked down at Ta-Wu with inscrutable eyes. "You stand accused of piloting a spacecraft with a suspended license, a serious offense. What say you?" "Guilty, Your Honor," Ta-Wu said simply. A murmur ran through the courtroom. However, Judge Cho continued, "We have received testimony from the witnesses you transported that you did so at great personal risk, enabling them to testify in a case of galactic importance." The doors opened, and Ji Young entered with her crew. Behind them, in restraints, walked Commander Hansu. "The corruption case against the Kaldorian High Command can now proceed, thanks to these witnesses. And you." Ta-Wu stood straighter. "This court finds that while you technically violated the law, you did so in service of a higher justice. Your license is reinstated, with the provision that you complete 200 hours of flight training for refugee transport operations." As the gavel fell, Jia Young approached Ta-Wu. "I still don't understand. Why risk everything for strangers?" Ta-Wu smiled. "That's just what humans do sometimes. We break the small rules to keep the big ones." Outside the courtroom window, the stars twinkled indifferently, unaware that in a small corner of the galaxy, humanity's peculiar sense of justice had tilted the cosmic scales once more. Ta-Wu stood in the center of the great courtroom. The walls rose high above him. The ceiling was a clear dome that showed the stars. Light from Proxima's sun filled the room. He had slept poorly in his cell. His hands were still in restraints, but he stood tall as the judges looked down at him. The 12 judges were from different planets and species. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked almost human. All wore the same black robes. Judge Min-Ji Cho sat in the center. She was human, but had lived on Proxima Station for 30 years. Her face showed no emotion as she read the charges. "Ta-Wu Park, you stand accused of piloting a spacecraft with a suspended license, a serious offense. What say you?" Ta-Wu took a deep breath. "Guilty, Your Honor." People in the courtroom began to whisper. Most people tried to defend themselves or make excuses. Ta-Wu did not. Judge Cho raised her hand for silence. "You admit to breaking the law?" "Yes," Ta-Wu said. "I had no choice. I needed to appear in this court, and there was no legal way to get here." "So you broke one law to obey another?" Judge Cho asked. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Cho looked at a data pad in her hand. "However, we have received testimony from the witnesses you transported that you did so at great personal risk, enabling them to testify in a case of galactic importance. The large doors at the back of the courtroom opened. Ji-young walked in with her crew. They looked rested and clean. Behind them came a surprise. Commander Han-soo was being led in restraints by station security. His face was dark with anger. Ji-young nodded to Ta-woo as she passed. She and her crew took seats near the front of the courtroom. "The evidence provided by these witnesses is compelling," Judge Cho said. "Commander Han-soo and several members of the Kaldorian High Command have been selling weapons to pirate groups. These weapons were used to attack civilian ships." The court screen showed images of damaged ships and injured people. Tai-woo felt sick looking at them. If these witnesses had not reached Proxima Station, this evidence would have been lost, Judge Cho continued. "And you, Mr. Park, made their arrival possible." Tai-woo said nothing. He had not known how important Ji-young's testimony was. He had just done what seemed right. "The law is not just about rules," Judge Cho said. "It is about justice. And sometimes one must bend a small rule to serve greater justice." She looked at the other judges. They all nodded in agreement. "This court finds that while you technically violated the law, you did so in service of a higher justice. Your license is reinstated with the provision that you complete 200 hours of flight training for refugee transport operations." Judge Cho struck her gavel on the desk. The sound echoed in the large room. A security officer removed Ta-woo's restraints. He rubbed his wrists and tried to understand what had just happened. He had expected punishment. Instead, he had his license back. Commander Han-soo was led past him. "You," Han-soo hissed, "you have ruined everything." "No," Ta-woo said, "you did that yourself." After the court was dismissed, Ji-young found Ta-woo in the hallway. "Thank you," she said. "The Kaldorian High Command will be investigated. Many lives will be saved." "I'm glad," Ta-woo said. "But I didn't do it for that. I didn't even know what your testimony was about until today." Ji-young looked confused. "Then why? Why risk everything for strangers? Why damage your ship? Why face jail? None of it makes sense." Tai-woo thought about it. Why had he helped them? It wasn't for reward or recognition. It wasn't even because it was the smart thing to do. "That's just what humans do sometimes," he said with a smile. "We break the small rules to keep the big ones." Ji-young shook her head. "You humans are strange, but I am glad you are part of the galaxy." They walked together to a large window. Proxima Station slowly rotated, showing them a new view of space. Stars filled the darkness. Ships moved like small fish in a great sea. One of those small dots was the Kaldorian ship, now being held at the station. One was the damaged Dauntless, waiting for repairs, and somewhere out there were countless beings living their lives, unaware that today, in this small corner of the galaxy, humanity's peculiar sense of justice had tilted the cosmic scales just a little bit more toward good. Tae-woo placed his hand on the cool glass of the window. His court date was done. His license was restored. Now he could fly again, legally this time. "Where will you go now?" Ji-young asked. Tae-woo thought about all the stars out there, all the places he could visit, all the people who might need help. "Wherever the wind takes me," he said, "and wherever people need someone crazy enough to break the small rules for the right reasons." The ENDAR Triclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.